You think back 20 years, we've seen so much change. 10 years, 5 years. It's changed so fast. And one thing that hasn't changed is humans. We haven't gotten any smarter, any better at anything. There's a great quote from Conti, one of the leading ransomware groups. They say, how can we possibly attack these companies with billion-dollar, cybersecurity budgets? They said, so we don't. We attack people. We attack their users. So for us, it's like, okay, if that's the number one attack vector, let's change the paradigm. Let's protect those people from being attacked.
Welcome to the Peak IDV Executive Series video podcast, where I speak with executives, leaders, founders, and change makers in the digital identity space. I'm your host, Steve Craig, founder and chief enablement officer for Peak IDV. For our audience, this is a video first series, so if you're enjoying the audio version, please check out the video recording on executiveseries.peakidv.com. You can watch the full episode, read the transcript, and any of the links or resources we discuss, I'll put those in there. In this week's episode, I'm speaking with John Gunn, CEO and Evangelist for Token. Token is next generation multi-factor authentication powered by Token Smart Ring, their FIDO2 compliant wearable authentication device. John has deep experience with startups and turnarounds and has led 5 companies ranging anywhere from 0 to 10 million in revenue up to 300 million plus. Most recently, prior to Token, John was Chief Revenue Officer. He also served as Chief Marketing Officer at OneSpan, where he provided solutions to 70 of the top 100 global banks to stop attacks within online banking transactions. John's 30-plus year career spans fintech, digital identity, fraud prevention, consumer products, and the commercialization of state-of-the-art technologies. Welcome, John. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast.
Steve, thank you for having me on. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the introduction. I hope I can live up to it.
Yeah, well, let's get right into it. Can you tell us more about Token? What is Token? What's your elevator pitch?
We stop ransomware and phishing. Most ransomware comes from phishing, and that's what we stop. And it makes headlines every day, not just industry headlines, but major news headlines, all news headlines. People have read about MGM, Caesars, Johnson Controls, Hain, Dole, local communities, hospitals. There's a children's hospital in Chicago right now. It's been shut down for a week because of it. It's an impact on every business. SEC just passed regulation. People have to disclose it. And 90% of those attacks, 90% of the ransomware attacks have a single source. It's phishing. Why do attackers phish so much? It's because it works. So we looked at that and said, how are they getting in? And we said, how can we fix that? So nobody can stop all ransomware, but we can stop about 80 to 90% of those attacks start the same way. And we stop that because they're attacking humans, and we take human vulnerabilities out of the equation.
That's great. That's great. Now, looking into the company, I see it was founded in 2016 and you became CEO in 2022. When did you first hear about the company and what was the origin story of getting involved with Token?
I was introduced to it by one of the nation's leading search firms, if I can mention them, JM Search. They're outstanding, and they focus very much on a lot of things, but I know them from their technology practice. And the company was founded, 6-7 years ago, by a group of very talented engineers out of RIT, and they developed the Ring initially as a consumer product. They get used to make payments, buy coffee, open your house door, open a hotel door, open and start your car, all these different applications. But it was too ambitious. So the company was heading towards failure. And then a gentleman named Kevin Surace, who's, many people probably heard of him. He's a former Inc. Magazine Entrepreneur of the Year, holds a bunch of patents across all kinds of industries. He came in and said, this company has got this incredible technology, but the application's in the enterprise, not the consumer. And that's when our lead investor came in, Series B, Grand Oaks, very strong VC, understands technology, $1 billion portfolio. They came in, we had a Series B funding about 2 years ago. And that's when the company was really, you'd say, relaunched. And that's when they started their search for a CEO. And that's when they found me. And my background was a perfect fit because here's here's an authentication solution. And I've spent 20 years in cybersecurity and more than a decade in authentication. And as soon as I saw it, like this is the perfect product at the perfect time. And since then, the problem we solved has only gotten worse.
Yeah, that's a great backstory, John. Thanks for sharing. Can you share more about how the product works and what the implementation experience is like for enterprise?
You bet. Everybody's familiar with OTP. I'm sorry, with MFA. Second factor. Everybody does banking. Your bank says, we're going to send you an OTP. You've got a new device. Or
Hmm.
it's good to just set that up whenever you log into anything. Different with that. But on an enterprise, when you move consumer to enterprise level, you need a higher level of security because MFA is getting hacked. There's all kinds of ways to hack it. So it works to the user a lot like the MFA they're used to, except it takes their interaction out of it. So you may be used to having to enter OTP or username, credentials. You don't have to do that anymore. This happens completely transparently, and we've taken it off of these devices that are getting hacked. When you get sent an OTP, one-time password, or if you use an authentication app on your mobile phone, this is a phenomenally insecure device. And businesses struggle with, BYOD because these devices are owned by their employees. They don't want them to lock them down. They can't restrict them. They can't stop what employees do. They load malware on them. And you still have this process that where phishing works is they get a user to enter their credentials, a one-time password, or they click approve when it's really cyber criminals that are logging in and the user's not smart enough to tell the difference. So we said, let's take that all off the table. Let's make it transparent to the user. They still wear the device, they wear the ring, but they can interact with the device they're logging into without entering anything. So it does two things. One, they can't get it wrong. Number two, nobody can jump in the middle of that. Because when you look at most of these attacks, they get a user to enter their credentials or their authorization into a malicious website, or there's a man in the middle attack. When you eliminate that possibility, you eliminate 90% of the risk that's involved. And so that's what we do. On the enterprise side, implementation is very easy. And a lot of organizations ask us, wow, is this going to be tough? What do I have to rip and replace? Nothing. Because they're already using some form of authentication. We're just another authenticator. We have what's called an AAGUID, an authentication attestation global universal identifier. And we're just another authenticator that exists in our AM solution. So they may have UV keys, which are great. They may have OTPs in another way. So within that IAM solution, all of them, whether it's Okta or Ping or Oracle or Microsoft, IBM, Cisco, fantastic solution, Cisco Duo. We work with all of them. And the integration is just saying these users have this device, then you're done. So instead of being a multi-month, multi-week, or multi-day, it's more like a couple hours. So it's super, super easy.
Yeah. Well, I think about my career in the arc of MFA. It was a long time ago, those business card sized devices that were like calculators that would give you the code. And then many of the companies started to shift to SMS based because it was easier. But we know the problems with SIM swapping and spoofing and those attacks. A wearable device is very intriguing. I imagine there's some biometric pieces to that. Can you talk about how it actually detects who the user is and what are the attributes that it's analyzing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's got a fingerprint sensor built into it. I'll try and hold up to the camera here. Maybe you can see it, but you can see there's a fingerprint reader in there. And so you place your finger on it like that, and it reads your finger, which is doing right now. And then once it matches, the person wears it. And so when I'm logging in, I activate the device with a knock, and it can communicate by NFC or Bluetooth. It's the sysadmin's choice, and it's sharing my credentials, so I can go passwordless. There's no password to steal, and then through that secure encrypted channel, uh, it can do a PKI exchange, private keys on this device, and so are my biometrics. So only I can use this. And as soon as I take it off, it deactivates. Now nobody else can use it. So unlike a token, which is very secure, if I take my token out, leave it on the desk or in my desk, someone could steal it. A lot of people leave them in their computer. It's like leaving the keys in your car. Anybody can drive away. This always with me, only be used by me. And there's nothing I could give up. I can't tell somebody, my credentials. Well, I don't know. They're in here somewhere. I can't tell you what they are. So, what I'll tell people is you can take your absolute most gullible user who cares nothing about security of the company, most careless person who's most gullible. And on their worst day, they can still not present any risk to the organization unless they logged in and handed their keyboard to somebody. But this attacker's in China or North Korea, so that ain't happening. So we really take the human element out of it. And when you look at it, MFA, up till a year ago, when you're saying, oh, you got to implement MFA, you got to go from passwordless. Passwords are 60-year-old technology. Most legacy MFA is 20-year-old technology. And if you were talking to a business consultant and said, hey, this industry is just getting slammed by these attacks. How are they defending themselves? Oh, they're using this 20-year-old technology. 20-year-old technology? Yeah. So I think, when's the last time you sent a fax, used a floppy disk, or dial up internet? You know, some people I talk to, they're too young to even know what those are. But that is what the majority of organizations are relying on as their primary defense. And all those examples I gave you at the start, that long list making the news, that's what they're all relying on, 20-year-old technology.
It's interesting in this podcast series, a common theme is legacy technologies that really aren't that great. For identity verification, we talk about knowledge-based authentication. What we're talking about now on the MFA devices using old tokens or smart cards, things that can be socially engineered. Yeah, you have technologies like a fax machine that disappeared almost overnight, it felt like. So what do you think are some of the challenges with the adoption of the state of the art? How has that evolved as you've joined Token?
I think a lot of it has to do with just the nature of cybersecurity. I mean, I can't imagine being a CISO or a senior person responsible for defending an organization. I mean, that is literally mission impossible. There's so many attacks, so many places. In the cybersecurity segment, Gartner tracks 22 major categories, only subcategories, and there's 3,000 vendors. And there's no way they can defend against everything. So it's this scramble. What's the latest attack? What's the latest technology? And these 3,000 vendors, everyone's saying, oh, we're a little bit better than the other person. We're a little bit faster. We're a little bit better at detecting this. And so much of mentality is, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. 2 years ago, they switched from passwords to something more secure, or they switched from OTPs to dongles. Like, you tell me I got to switch again? Like, well, if you don't want to be the next MGM, then yeah, but you know, it's your choice. Uh, the other thing I say is, when you look at our segment, I don't know how long you've been in the cybersecurity segment, Steve. How long have you been in it?
I would say about 20 years because I worked at a company 8 years ago in internet banking when it was in its early days of helping credit unions and banks get online. Yeah.
We've both seen, you think back 20 years, we've seen so much change. Even people 10 years, 5 years, people been listening for 1 year. It's changed so fast. The one thing that hasn't changed is humans. We haven't gotten any smarter, any better at anything. And so that's what, in fact, there's a great quote from Conti, one of the leading ransomware groups. They say, how can we possibly attack these companies with $1 billion, cybersecurity budgets? I think Chase's is somewhere around that. They said, so we don't. We attack people. We attack their users. So for us, it's like, okay, if that's the number one attack vector, let's change the paradigm. Let's protect those people from being attacked.
You mentioned a few moments ago your relationship with Grand Oaks Capital, and you'd raised some additional financing last year. How has that investment helped with go to market and getting this message out there and product development? How are you deploying those funds?
Yeah. Grand Oaks has been the best VC I've ever worked with. They understand the solution. They understand the market. They're huge champions, of what we're doing. And our business is a bit different. For most cybersecurity companies, almost everything out there is a SaaS solution. We're not. We're this hardware. So if you started, if Peak IDV was selling a SaaS cybersecurity solution and your head of sales said, "Hey, celebration, I got 10,000 more seats." Okay, the investment you have to make is your AWS, cloud bill is going to go up a little bit. For us, for those 10,000, I got to go buy components to build 10,000 rings. I put the labor in to build 10,000 rings. Then 10,000 rings go out there and people start, paying a monthly subscription. So it's very capital intense at the start. We have great margin. So Grand Oaks understands this. And so that's what those uh, financing vehicles are for. Like that, it requires a bigger investment. And, so they gave us two facilities. This is over the last 12 months when it's very difficult to raise capital, but they see the opportunity. And part of what helps, I think, a lot is the fact that Grand Oaks is, Tom Galsano is the gentleman behind that. He's the founder of Paycheck. He's written a couple of really fascinating books on his journey to entrepreneurship. And he's worth billions. And I think he understands, because of his struggles for decades to turn that into this, industry leader. He understands the journey, and he's also an incredible philanthropist. If you look at, just everything he's done, and I think he really wants to help create the next paychecks and enable that next huge breakthrough, not just for financial reasons, but it's part about, when you're very successful, you turn back around and you help the next one in line. So I mean, not that there's no pressure not to perform, but Tom is an incredible businessman, incredibly competitive, but he also has a huge heart.
That's great. It's so important to have the right investor and make sure they understand your business and things like hardware expenditures. If you're traditionally investing in SaaS companies or software companies where you've got these margins that scale after the R&D, that may be hard to realize, hey, with every new customer, you're going to have this big expense up front. And then you have over time, you're recouping that. And looking into your background, I see you've got a lot of experience in this space. You were on the management team at 3DFX, the graphics card. And to date myself a little bit, I had a Voodoo graphics card. Actually, I had two over a period of time when it was all about video gaming. It was like Quake and Doom and things like that. Can you share more about that experience? It's kind of a little side thread from the token stuff. But how was that time period for you?
Yeah, that's going way back. I mean, that was very exciting times. It's reminiscent of what we're doing now in that you had all these video card companies that were making graphics processors, and they were making these incremental improvements. And at 3D they said, "Well, we took a totally different approach." And they had what's called a scan line interleave. But we just drew every other line with a different processor, and you'd have twice the power. And so it suddenly just blew everything else away. Was that kind of created its own category. And so it was the solution to purchase because it took a while to get some traction, but it was really clearly this different innovation. And in a lot of ways, we're trying to do the same thing here of the rest of the world is trying to solve this problem this way, the old fashioned legacy way. And then here's token. We're taking a totally different approach. We're going to get humans out of it and we're going to change this. So yeah, I hope we have the same success. And when you look what happened to 3D got acquired by NVIDIA back when NVIDIA was a small company and Jen's building it. And, of course, he's off the charts as far as a gifted business person. But even back then, his focus was really on, having the best technology and being that innovative leader. And he acquired 3D to get, I think, mostly to get the hundreds of super talented engineers we had and to build his technology portfolio. But that was a great time. It really did. People overuse the term so much of disruption. We're going to disrupt the market. You know, very little technology does. 3DFX really did.
The 3D FX marketing was also very different than other companies. It had the eyes in it, and it was colorful, and it was taking a completely different approach. And I feel like it was capturing a good market, but it was still the hobbyist market. It was those that were building their own machines and PCs and stuff. And felt like NVIDIA was in a similar spot. And it's just been the last 10 years with the GPU revolution around machine learning that NVIDIA has really blown up. How do you think about that market then? You said token was in a similar spot. Like, where are we going with these multi-factor authentication devices? Because you've got this legacy status quo, but then you've got companies like Token, they're going to do things differently.
When you look at how it was, HelpNet Security, one of their headlines maybe over the summer and the fall was, hackers aren't breaking in anymore, they're logging in. Yeah, and that's the problem. They are easily picking these simple locks that most organizations are using. So what do you do if your locks don't work? Buy better lock. And so we set about making a much better log that would stop them. They can still attack through, RDP attack. They can look for vulnerabilities, unpatch things, open ports, but that's a small part of where attacks happen now. We wanted to knock out, the number one vector. And so you see a lot more talk about phishing resistant MFA. So the industry is waking up to the fact that that's happening. And so we felt very good about the attention. And we're solving, everybody out there, all 3,000 vendors are solving a problem. There's a problem we solve. Can you articulate that? We solve the number one problem for every CISO, every board, every CEO, every organization. The number one risk they face, are breaches and ransomware. I saw an hour ago, an update was on Reuters saying that the amount of Bitcoin payments for ransomware had almost doubled last year. Yeah, a new record, obviously. And it is billions and billions of dollars. And it's obviously when current approach isn't working. So we've come forward with this. Here's the new approach. Here's what worked. Now, maybe 4 years from now, 5 years from now, they find a way around, or they just attack through other methods. But organizations can right now stop their biggest risk to the organization in the most common way cyber criminals are gaining access to their network.
Well, we're seeing more and more of these data breaches, and then as consumers, I feel like when I talk with people, there's like this desensitization that's happening, or because it's so frequent, it's just background noise. But I know CISOs are under a lot of pressure. IT teams are under a lot of pressure. They don't want to be the next headline. What would you say is the temperature when you're speaking with some of those leaders at these large enterprises?
It's a real priority for a lot of reasons. And I think consumers are being desensitized a bit, especially, I don't know how many letters you got last year, but take the last several years, total, I probably got 6 offers for, you get a whole year of credit monitoring, or we're going to give you 2 years. Well, they've got my social security for the rest of my life. What about year 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and however long you plan to live? I hope I live a long time. So, because my favorite thing you see in these breach letters is so disingenuous. When companies say, we have not yet detected, they say, we have not detected any actual misuse of your social security number or credit. Okay, did you really go look that hard? And does that mean that my social security number being stolen will never be a risk to me? I mean, come on. And I think I think people are desensitized to it. Last week, 2 weeks ago was a fake headline, 26 billion record dump. What was this, a conglomeration of previous, you know, breaches? But 26 billion is set 5 or 6 times people on this planet. So it's all out there. It's all out there. But here's what's changing. Here's what's changing, and why it's even more urgent now. You're seeing a lot more, 3 reasons why a company wants to fix this problem. One, interruption of their business. If I'm a business and I'm shut down, I'm Hanes Brands and I'm shut down, or I'm Dole Clorox. People couldn't buy bleach. They just announced, I guess, in the last week, that the price, the financial impact will be $49 million. So that's a huge motivator right there. It also applies to smaller companies. There's an upstate New York care provider, and they had a breach, and HIPAA fined them $450,000. That doesn't sound like that much in terms of these $100 million losses, but it was $2,700 per employee. So isn't there a solution for less than $2,700 you can stop this? And now here's the pickup I promised you. Here's what's really changing. I'm going to take you back in time, because you've taken me back in time. We were 3 FX and other. All this time, whenever a share price in a company would drop, it went down 20%, 25%. There's a group of plaintiffs lawyers who sue class action lawsuit on behalf of the shareholders. Okay, what's the cause of action? We'll figure that out later. There's tortious action here because somebody lost 30% of their investment. And when you add it all up, it's a huge amount of money. The same phenomenon is starting to happen now, where as soon as a company announces a breach, we're going to sue on behalf of the victims. So yes, Steve, you got your letter with your notice and your monitoring, but you really were harmed, and they should have done more to protect you. So now the company has the cost of remediation and getting back up and going, or the ransomware they paid. Maybe they have regulatory issues, maybe not, but most don't. But now they have this class action lawsuit, and juries will undoubtedly be very friendly, especially in healthcare, where you probably read the story about patients who had cancer patients, women who had pictures of them, naked, or I don't know how to describe it, but you know what I'm saying, exposed, or they restored it. We have pictures of your upper body exposed. Pay us $1,000 in Bitcoin or 5,000. Those judgments against those companies are going to be huge. So that's new, and that's an additional motivator where companies will say, "We've got to solve this problem."
Yeah, yeah. The ramifications of breached data, whether it be your social security number or your date of birth, stuff you can't change. You're with that for the rest of your life, or things that you wish you could take back. Pictures or videos that were hacked. These are really challenging and very jarring for consumers. But then at the same time, they're still susceptible to these social engineering attacks. And I thought your company did a really good job with an example of one. It's called prompt bombing. And I watched the video, and it's really interesting that person's like out and about and they're getting these messages. Can you describe how that works and maybe any of the other social engineering attacks that you're seeing the consumer should be aware of?
Yeah, you bet. For consumers, you'll get that prompt that says, there'll be two. One will say, you just logged into your social media account through a different device. And if it isn't, you take action, but it was. Other ones will say, you are trying to log into this account. Do you approve or deny? And it's probably you. So you say approve, and then boom, you're in. If you say deny, then you're not in. So sysadmins and organizations sometimes use that same method to grant somebody who's trying to log in permission. So cyber criminals figure out if we just hit them with enough of them, sometimes they'll take the bait. If you go back and look at the news stories that give the history of how Uber was hacked, I mean, I tell the story exactly, but here's the gist of it. There was an sysadmin who controlled that access, and they kept getting hit over and over and over these approval requests. Deny, 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 and they finally hit approve. When they asked the individual, "Why'd you hit approve?" They essentially said, I'm just paraphrasing here, "It was really late. I was really tired. I wanted to go to sleep. I wanted to make it stop."
I thought that you did a great job explaining that what a lot of I feel like the mainstream population that's not in these fields, what they don't understand is how these attacks work, whether it be a fishy looking email or a random text message. What are other attack vectors in the consumer world, and maybe even like in the small business world, where maybe you're not a large enterprise? Like, how are criminals trying to take advantage of those?
Well, there's a ton of them. Number one is still just the text and the email phishing. That's the number one risk. And the attacks are, more innovative than ever. And, but there's a lot of different ways. I mean, if I can attack I want to attack your business. I'm going to attack your personal email first. I had an incident 8 years ago where I'm a somewhat technical guy, and the CEO said, "Hey, John, can you help me with this? Uh, there's this, message from my wife on email." So I look at it and I'm like, "Don't touch that. Someone has hacked your wife's email account, and that's not really her. Like, call her up." And she's like, "No, I didn't send that." And so they were trying to reach him, to the CEO, because they'd hacked the wife's personal email. And then that's how we were going to get into his business email. and then they'd be in the organization. So there's this incredible ingenuity. Any way you can think of attacking, they'll try. When you look at this army, I mean, in the US, not everybody gets to go to university. Incredibly expensive. Nobody wants to graduate with 6 figures of college debt. Russia, China, if you're smart, they figured out when you're young. You're paid all the way through. You graduate, what do? Well, you work for the state and attack American targets, or work for private enterprise and work at the direction of the state to attack American targets. There's such huge money in it that you've got this growing army of enemy state agents that are incredibly smart and incredibly well educated that are attacking American assets, American businesses, because there's billions of dollars and it funds activities by enemy states of ours, North Korea, Iran. And it's more than just, wow, it's unfortunate somebody was, some old lady got her purse stolen or a bank got robbed. This is billions of dollars that are funding terrorist activities, other criminal activities that really impact every American.
I recently watched a documentary on YouTube by DW. That's a German media outlet, and they were talking about the business of these scam centers where people go from other countries into a different country to take a job. They think it's a call center job or a sales job, and they end up going into forced labor to do these attacks.
Oh,
And there's big business in it. Well, your company just recently posted a news article about a $25 million scam from a
and
deep fake. Can you share a little bit more about that scenario that
you
you're having?
bet. Most people haven't heard of deep fakes. Maybe they heard about deep fakes and they, saw an example on YouTube or something where someone created a video that wasn't really that person, but it looked or they've seen it in a movie, an action movie or a sci-fi movie. But I think, a few weeks ago when Taylor Swift deep fakes were circulating, people realized, wow, this stuff can really happen. But, you know, Taylor Swift's a great artist, but the real money, nobody made money on that. Well, they could because they could send that out. Hey, Steve, here's the video of Taylor Swift. This video, click on it. But it's really taking you to a malicious website and you're getting malware. But a company that's based in China that has offices in the UK, they got a senior finance person on a webcast, Zoom, like you and I are right now. And this person was talking to their CFO, not just their CFO, but a couple other members of their senior management team, just like you and I are talking right now. That's Steve. Of course, that's Steve. But it wasn't really them. These were deep fakes. So they put a huge amount of effort into it. So, and the person said, this was really suspicious. 25 million, it's a big organization. Steve, we have secret projects all the time. We don't bring people in the tent until they need to know. You need to know right now. The reason why you need to know is I need 25 million sent right now. Well, this is really fishy. Believe me? And then I bring in these other colleagues that you work with. And you're like, there's my colleague. There's my peer. There's my boss. There's my boss's boss. And you're like, this has got to be legit. Okie dokie. Off goes the 25 million. And that's an example. And you'll see those on a more simple basis where a lot of attacks now, people are a lot more suspicious and they want proof. You want proof? Okay. I'll do a video call with you. Employees, we're not a big company. Every new employee that we get hired, somebody has a bot on LinkedIn, they can see new employee at Token. Okay. They get a text that says, hey, this is John. It's real urgent. I need you to buy some gift cards and send them to this. They're only trying to steal, $500 or $1,000 from us. But it's the same thing, impersonating somebody. But if they sent them to a website to download malware or other things, and you're going to see a lot more of that. A lot more of that has come. A lot of it's going to drive is generative AI. It's enabling all of that. It's a great tool for business productivity. It's an incredibly dangerous tool in the hands of cyber criminals.
Generative AI and AI used for bad or malicious purposes is a common thread in this podcast. And I saw that you were recently at the Cybersecurity Summit and you were talking about the weaponization of Gen AI. Are there any takeaways that you can share or maybe how Token could have helped one of those scenarios like the 25 million?
I'll start with the end that we stopped that. We stopped phishing attacks. But during the presentation, I say, I'm going to show you 3 easy steps where any one of you in the audience can become a cyber criminal. And it's incredibly simple to do that. I mean, everything is right there because, ransomware shifted to ransomware as a service. I don't have to write the code to do ransomware. I can rent it. I can do it on a per use basis. I can do it on a share of the profits, different licensing models. I can find my targets, among those 26 billion records. I can set up a crypto account. I can use Tor to anonymize myself. And the one thing that was missing there was got to have a great phishing email. Well, that changes with Gen AI. And there's 2 things I'd encourage people that are watching this cast to do. One, Google Jennifer Carruthers, IBM X Force, uh, Red Team, and Gen AI. She wrote a great blog where she tested, I mean, world famous, you know, Red Team, it- white hat hackers. She tested them against a version Chat GPT with the safety rails taken off. And it was fascinating. She writes a blog about it. Everybody should read it. She found that her success rate, it's really smart executives, was 14%. Chat GPT was only 11%. Okay, not quite as good yet, but it's advancing incredibly fast. Here's the difference. On average, it took her team about 16 hours to create a really effective phishing email. Chat GPT, 5 minutes. I asked an IBM exec, how many people on this planet you think have the skills that team does could write phishing emails that good? 10 or 20,000 maybe total universe? Okay. You know how many people could use Chat GPT or Fraud GPT as the unlocked version of it to write a really effective phishing email? About 1 or 2 billion. Almost anybody with a connection. And when you look at that, I mean, what's the economy when they call it, Steve? We're all in the gig economy. You got a car? You could drive for Uber part-time. Good way to make a living, nice people, or you could do package delivery. This is the gig economy. Well, if you don't have a strong moral fiber, you could do a gig thing part-time, jump on the dark net, and you can start sending phishing emails using those tools I just mentioned. I mean, I'm not revealing any great secrets, that's unethical for you to reveal. It's all right there. And almost anybody with access to the internet can now launch these really effective phishing attacks. So if you look at 23, which was a landmark year for victims of ransomware, phishing attacks, you say, now there can be much more attacks by much more people. I mean, what do you think 24 is going to look like?
Just a few moments ago, you mentioned some of the rogue nation states or call them Cold War enemies of the modern time. They have operations that are attacking us. A lot of the ransomware attacks come from Russia or from China or from Iran or from North Korea. And there's this ongoing debate we see in the news about physical border control. And we need to take control of our borders in the South, and we need to prevent people from coming in. But our cyber borders are wide open. People are using VPNs. They're in different countries that we can't even touch them and persecute them if they do get caught. Where do you think the strategies as companies look at new tools, or even as a country, how do we defend against those? Combine that with the Gen AI attacks.
Yeah, great question. And I think it's simply looking at what type of attacks are coming in and how do you stop them? And right now, the majority of attacks are phishing attacks that are designed to put malware, steal data, get malware in, get access, exfiltrate data, lock up the business, extort them, single, double, triple. And, but most of them are getting in today by defeating legacy MFA. So our mission is to stop that, break that chain, make them find some other way in. And it's not like all these cyber criminals are going to say, "Oh, wow, we can't get anything because of token ring. I guess we'll go find other jobs. I'm going to paint. What are you going to do? Plumbing?" I mean, they're going to attack other methods. But if you do it first, they'll attack other companies instead of you. And the other methods are well protected and much harder to get access to. So the single easiest, best first move for most organizations is to look at their MFA, look what they're using, and say, we have this group of privileged users and a senior executive. We have to protect them in a much better fashion right now, or they'll become the next MGM, Caesars, Johnson, Haynes, Dole, and so on.
That's great advice. Well, as we look at this is early 2024, as you look at the next year for token and maybe even the bigger picture of the company, where do you see your market going? Authentication, wearable authentication, like, how is this going to evolve over the coming years?
For us right now, we've come out of the gate strong, huge interest from what we do. I think part of it is that there's so many great vendors out there at most events, and they're sending out information, and a lot of it is hard to discern. And we show up with something that's totally different. So we're getting huge interest. Got over 100 POCs that are running, and the ring just became available across every industry: auto, healthcare, finance, big banks, little banks, insurance providers. Um, so for us, it's building that business out, converting those POCs into revenue, expanding. Obviously, ransomware is a worldwide phenomenon, and many of the large organizations we're talking to have global offices. So expanding globally to do that. And we're also looking at other form factors where we can use the things we're doing, making it passwordless, making it biometric, making it easy to use and hard to lose. And so we're already looking at other form factors that we'll bring out, and then improving the ring, making it smaller, easier, less expensive, all the things. When you look at iPhone 1, if someone gave you iPhone 1 now, you'd think this thing's I'm supposed to use this. When it came out, it was world changing. So this is kind of like our iPhone 1, where right now, compared to what's out there, it's kind of world changing. There's still a lot of opportunity to enhance its capabilities.
Yeah. Well, you'll adapt to different styles and preferences. And if you are going to have different form factors, I think that is a powerful way to extend your reach and to reach more consumers and businesses. So that's phenomenal, John. Well, we're running up on time. If you've seen any of the episodes of Executive Series, you may know I like to go just a little bit further than the LinkedIn profile. And I was doing some background research. I see you're based in Chicago. Are you big Chicago sports fan? Go to any
Yeah,
teams that you root for out there?
it's not as easy these days to be a Chicago sports fan. You know, I grew up in LA, so fall asleep at night listening to my transistor radio with the Dodgers and Scully calling the Dodgers, and Tommy Lasorda. So if I'm a fan of anything, it's probably the Dodgers. Sorry, my fellow Chicagoans.
All right. Well, where do you like to spend your time outside of evangelizing token and building up the company? Any causes that are important to you or hobbies?
Absolutely. You got another hour for me? Uh,
Yeah, I think
it's
we got time.
it's really about people. Uh, it's Feeding America. I'll put a picture of Feeding America. Number two charitable organization in the U.S. Uh, 99 cents of every dollar goes to help people. I'm a huge supporter of theirs. They can actually feed a person for just 5 cents. You give $1 to them, they've created 20 meals. And so I love that organization. And then children in the foster system. Yeah, these are kids these are awesome, gifted kids that just need help. And so I think it's really about helping people. In a way, Token Ring helps people because when companies get 60% of small businesses, medium-sized businesses get hit with a cyber attack. More than half of them got a business in 6 months. There's people who've lost jobs, they've lost income, huge impact on their family. And I do like the patriotic element of what we're doing, that we're protecting, U.S. businesses from, our enemies, Iran, North Korea, China, that are trying to hurt our way of life, interfere with our democratic process, hurt our businesses. So that's also helped.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. One of the recurring themes for the podcast is just speaking with the superheroes of our industry because you're fighting crime. You're stopping money laundering, which is helping terrorism and human trafficking, and those two causes outside of work that you mentioned. Helping people with food insecurity and supporting the foster system. Those are really great, John. Well, as we wrap up, for those that are listening to the podcast, what type of conversations are you interested in having? How should people reach out to you?
The website's a great place to start. We have a form on there. When you can learn a lot about the product, you can learn a lot about the types of attacks. People are experiencing, they know what attacks they're getting. But there's a big button at the top, try token ring. Anybody says, this sounds interesting. I'd like to put one on my finger. I'd like to try it. See how easy it is to use and implement. We love getting rings out there. That's the easiest thing to go to the website, click on try it. We have all kinds of experts that will talk to people about their situation, their IAM architecture. We fit in without a heavy sales pitch. We just love our product is in high demand already. So it's not a hard sales pitch. It's just here's information. You can draw your own company.
Right. I've seen the token ring in person, actually, myself. I was at the FIDO Authenticate show in this past October. So I definitely recommend people get your demo in the mail or go to a show. Are there any events coming up that are top of mind that people could see your product?
Yeah, we do about 30 or 40 events a year. The we'll be at RSA. We'll be at the Authenticate again, and we'll be at Identiverse. And then the Cyber Risk Alliance has a traveling show that goes to 30 or 40 cities in the US, and we're usually there uh, telling our story and with rings to demonstrate. And people can find us at those events.
Great. I'll be sure to link your events page in this episode too, so they can see all the different places you'll be at.
Oh, that'd be great.
John, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I'm really excited to watch your progress in the market and to see you grow and succeed. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure to join you. I really appreciate the invitation. Hope people that listen got value out of what I shared, and happy to answer any questions. People can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn with any questions. I'll engage them. Happy to maybe be short answers, but we're here
Great.
to promote a new way of solving an old problem that is a huge problem. So thank you again very much, Steve. You have a great program. It's an honor to be on it.
Thank you, John. All right. Bye.